What can art about fire teach us about our past, present, and future? Here at the National Museum of Wildlife Art, we are in the perfect place to explore this burning question. The painting we're going to take a look at is called Prairie Fire and Buffalo Stampede by William Jacob Hayes. It was painted in 1869. And when we look closely at it, maybe the first thing we notice is a herd of bison stampeding across the prairie from left to right. When you look closer at the bison, you can see the terror in their eyes and the glow of orange light on their sides. When you look up, you see a billowing cloud of black smoke that's moving in to blot out the full moon. Now look way over to the left-hand side at the horizon, and you see this intense orange glow.
Right, like the bison are trying to outrun a fast-moving fire.
Exactly. And the artist has done some interesting things to heighten this tension. If you look up at the leading edge of the smoke in the upper right-hand corner and then follow with your eye diagonally down to the lower left-hand corner, it creates this compositional feature where everything to the right of the line is cool colors, blues and greens, and everything to the left of that line is warm colors, orange and browns and blacks. It makes me feel a lot of tension and anxiety. And when I look at this, my heart starts to beat faster, and I start to feel like this primal urge to run away like the animals do.
Right, I think that makes a lot of sense. It's a very intense piece. And you know, I've actually heard some people say that the fire in Hayes' artwork, you know, racing across the plains, ominous, destructive, it can be seen as an analogy for colonists moving across North America, displacing and threatening the lives of people and animals along the way. So the fire in Hayes' painting could represent European Americans moving west.
That makes sense to me because 1869, when this painting was created, was the same year that the Golden Spike was driven into the railroad at Promontory, Utah, signifying the completion of the first transcontinental railroad. And this was celebrated as a great achievement by some, but for the native peoples who lived there, it was a drastic shift in their cultural narrative, changing their lives and the lives of the animals they depended on forever. In fact, shortly after the railroad was completed, the American bison nearly became extinct. And this forced the Native American tribes off of their ancestral lands and onto reservations. So Carrie, what do we know about the artist, William Jacob Hayes?
So Hayes Sr. was an American painter and explorer. He traveled extensively around the US in search of wildlife. And when he was about 30, which was 10 years before he made this painting, he took several months following in the steps of Lewis and Clark, exploring the Missouri River, the Great Plains, the Yellowstone River in Montana. And when he returned home, he had all of these sketches of the animals and the plants and the landscapes that he had seen during his travels. And he was particularly captivated by the bison. And at the time he was traveling, Hayes saw firsthand the decline of the great American bison herds, and he was very concerned for their future survival. Additionally, Hayes had a reputation as a reliable documentarian, so it's actually quite likely that he saw a prairie fire trigger a stampede like the one we see in this painting.
So we know that large fires have moved across the Western landscape throughout history. Is that good or bad?
Right, and what's the difference between then and now?
Let's go out and examine the aftermath of a fire that happened right outside this museum this past summer. And with us will be Leslie, a fire manager who worked on this fire and has seen many fires, including ours, up close.
Great, let's go.
I'm Leslie Williams Gomez, and I work in fire prevention for the Bridger Teton National Forest and Teton Interagency Fire.
so we can compare notes and talk about what you saw, what your experience was, and what mine was.
It was a pretty exciting day, wasn't it? It was a beautiful day. There was some lightning predicted for that afternoon. I was up Flat Creek across the valley here and saw this beautiful cell coming in, and you could tell it had lightning in it. It was just the bellowing and the whites and the grays. It was really quite impressive. And lo and behold, it dropped some lightning right here in your backyard.
And I could actually see the smoke from where I live in town. And so I thought, oh, I need to get up there because, of course, we worry about the artwork. That's our first concern. And by the time I got up here, we could even see the flames really brightly at that point, and my heart was pounding. The curatorial team was already here. They were really organized. They had their list of the top 10 most valuable works of art, and they were in the galleries, taking them off the walls, putting them on a cart and bringing them into painting storage. At that point, then, even though we could smell the smoke inside, we knew that lots of people were here helping. And there were fire engines up here on the parking lot hosing down the brush as the fire moved in closer. There were helicopters dropping buckets of water.
I think for us it was a great relief knowing that the museum was made of great materials that were not flammable. You guys have adapted to this environment in that your siding is not going to burn. You have a fire-resistant roof, and that brings great comfort to firefighters when they're coming into an area.
So fortunately, no people were hurt in this fire, none of the artwork was hurt in this fire. This is the spot right here where it came closest to a work of art, the Ken Bun wolf being right here, and what would you say, 20 feet or something to the fire. What about wildlife?
So the ungulates they're all going to flee from a fire. They've got that.
They'll be like the elk, the mule deer.
Exactly. Yep. They're going to smell that smoke and they're out of the area. The smaller rodents will go deep and burrow in, and they'll wait for the fire intensity to pass, and then they'll come out, and then the coyotes and fox will come in and they'll take advantage of those rodents that are out of their holes. They are going to love this, and you'll see they'll be in here.
Thank you so much. That's really interesting from your perspective, because when I was here, we were just thinking art, take care of the art.
Well, and for us, we're thinking public safety, but in the back of our mind, we're thinking habitat, wildlife, it's a good thing.
Well, I think we should go up and walk around and check it out.
Great, let's do it. The fire that came through didn't have the intensity to damage the soil or even the roots underneath, and so the plants are coming back already. And I think that's really nice to see, and with the contrast of the black soil, it's really pretty.
It is, absolutely. There's so much more new growth than I would have expected.
Yeah, it came on fast, didn't it? The other day when we were out here walking, I noticed, oh, here it is. Here's the rabbit brush right here.
Wow.
So this is great for the mule deer. They really like the rabbit brush, and this is going to come in, and it already is coming in. Look how delicious that looks.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Nice and tender. It's got a way of working it out, nature does. Look! Is that a rose?
Leslie!
What do you think?
You have such a good eye. Wow.
There it is, a little rose.
Oh, look at this little guy.
That is pretty cool.
Wow, that's beautiful.
It is. What a nice contrast.
Yes.
The dark ash, and then the green, and now our little rose with the red. Yeah, it's just amazing that these plants, they have a way of surviving a fire. It just goes to show that fire isn't all bad, that nature has a way of taking care of itself and just coming back and reintroducing new life. So fire is good and bad on our landscape. It's bad for us as humans because it threatens our homes. It threatens the values that we enjoy, maybe the recreation areas that we enjoy to be in. But fire is very important for our wildlife and for our plants and diversity. The important thing to remember is that plants and animals adapt, okay? So that means that they have a life history component in them that allows them to either survive a fire or to adapt after a fire comes through. And we need to have that too. We need to, just as the museum has with the siding, that beautiful rock siding there, we need to adapt because we're moving into their living room, okay? And as we're bringing in our hobbies and our homes and what we like to do, we've got to adapt so that we're protecting them and for their future. So we need fire on the landscape. We need it. This is going to be a really good thing, but we have to be ready for it as humans. Our fires are getting hotter, they're getting larger, they're burning with more intensity, and in the same breath, they're very important for our habitat and our ecosystem here.
So I hear you saying that fire is changing. They're getting more frequent, more intense, larger. It sounds like some of the things that you're thinking about and that maybe we all need to be thinking about are trying to bring ourselves as humans back into balance with the way fire naturally acts in the landscape.
Oh, you're so right. You're so right. It's only destructive to us because we're losing things that mean a lot to us. But as far as the forest is concerned, it's really important.
So this fire on our hillside, even though it was very scary, has proved to be extremely beneficial, essential even.
Yeah, absolutely. And the nice thing is it was really done on nature's terms, right? It was a lightning strike. That's the beginning of the cycle, you know, lightning strike. And then the fire coming through and removing the litter and the vegetation and putting nutrients back into the soil. And then the wildlife coming back and enjoying that. So you've got a beautiful picture of the fire cycle happening in your own backyard. Pretty lucky.
Fire ecology is a complicated issue, and it's pretty clear that right now things are out of balance.
Absolutely. Well, you know, if you want to explore coming back into balance with fire, let's move away from the fearful vision in Hayes's work and go look at a piece that speaks a little more to our modern perspective on fire. One where it's still a powerful force, but a complex and life-giving one.
In this drawing by contemporary artist Zoe Keller, we see a large bird, a Mississippi sandhill crane. Wrapped loosely around the crane's neck is a harmless black pine snake. Held aloft in the crane's beak and in the snake's coiled body are burning branches from a gowan cypress tree. The crane crouches on a bed of embers from a forest fire. What do these species have in common? All risk extinction and all have been harmed by fire suppression.
I'm Zoe Keller, the artist who created the fire drawing, which is now at the National Museum of Wildlife Art. I'd like to give you a little background information on the animals and plants I have chosen to include in my drawing. Mississippi sandhill cranes are a critically endangered subspecies that currently exists only in one area of Mississippi. There are only about 100 birds left. The main reason for their decline is habitat loss and degradation of remaining habitat. Fires have been suppressed, but fires are important for healthy open pine savannas where the cranes live. Black pine snakes are threatened. They are native to the longleaf pine ecosystem in southeastern areas of the U.S. Gowan cypress trees are threatened. They are small coniferous trees that only exist in 2 small stands on the Monterey Peninsula in California. The Gowan cypress is highly fire dependent. The female cones are serotinous, which means that they open and release seeds only when exposed to the high heat of fire. The mass synchronized release of seeds during fires is essential to the survival of the species.
These 3 beings depend on fire for their survival. Keller demonstrates the dual nature of fire as both nurturing and dangerous. This is demonstrated by the burning branch carefully carried aloft by the crane, despite the fact that flames are dripping onto her back. She's also crouching on these embers, but they do not appear to be hurting her. Keller wants us to understand that burned ground is often fertile and not always barren. The bed of embers points to the idea of new life springing from a burned ecosystem.
I think for many people, fire is synonymous with disaster. And when things are out of balance, like they have been recently with these ultra-hot, out-of-control fires, lives and livelihoods can be lost. But when fire is in its natural balance, it's actually good for a healthy ecosystem.
But how do we find that balance?
There's no simple answer, but there are solutions. And it's up to each of us to take action and work for change.